The Netherlands. They're famous for their tulips, herring, windmills, and they are known as a country where all citizens are cyclists with laid-back attitudes. They're also famous for some of the best DJs and sports professionals in the world. It's a relatively tiny country that has a great impact on the rest of the world. Their history explains that very well, as they were, at one point, the economic superpower during the Dutch East India Company in 1602. Recent events shed some new light on this tiny country. The Netherlands plays a major role in the ongoing microchip war between the US and China, and the US is now involving Europe in their battle. Let's have a look at some of the details that might deal a devastating blow to the technology developments in China. This begins a couple of weeks back, when the US basically orders the company to have another look at their export controls. The political tensions between the US and China have resorted to the US going to new lengths and trying to force their allies into favoring them. We understand geopolitics, but now the Netherlands is pushed to the front in helping the US to win their war. So, what is it about? ASML produces on a large scale and of world-class high-tech machines which can produce some of the best semiconductors in the world, which have extensive military and advanced artificial intelligence applications. The US is very keen on remaining the world's superpower on all fronts, but especially on their military efforts. These exports controls are, of course, the rules the global powerhouse is setting up in order to fit their benefits, and the Netherlands is following suit. The growing political tensions will suit the US in enforcing this, and not partaking in this effort will just not cut it. These controls that are put up on the allies of the US will not mean they must halt their business with China as a whole. This only means ASML will not be able to sell their more advanced machines to the country. In a direct reaction to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, they stated that the Netherlands should look at their self-interest and should refrain from always following what others tell them to do. We could argue that's a valid point, but on the other hand, it's exactly what I imagine someone says when this is happening to them. And the US has reportedly been asking the Dutch government to help them to stop ASML from shipping their extreme ultraviolet lithography machines to China. These are the machines which they are referring to when it comes to the most advanced ones. Although the Dutch and US ties are extremely tight, these controls are not put in place in a matter of days. It takes time for the controls to be translated to legislation and taken into effect. They won't halt their operations immediately, but it has an effect on the operations of ASML going forward. This is part of the whole saga in which the US and China are battling over who comes on top in the AI arms race. The two countries are seen as the global superpowers, and they have been going at each other for years now. Recently, the US has been working with some of their biggest homegrown companies to shift their focus for production of goods towards India. Make no mistake about it, this is definitely part of the bigger picture in crushing China. Instead of doing that directly and fully on display, somewhere in the US, people are thinking these strategies over and over, ensuring that China's rise to power is slowed down or halts completely. So, what does China do? All the news is fairly one-sided. We'll seldomly see headlines about China sanctioning the US. Are they doing something to fight back? Well, yes, but not entirely how we would think. It's tough to understand the full picture, but China isn't rushing this. It also seems that they are fighting back, but they're doing so by systematically and strategically well-thought-out actions. Recently, they've acted as a broker to bring new life into the Saudi Arabia and Iran relations. What does this have to do with anything? Well, they are thinking years ahead. All the small steps they take will eventually have big returns. Their influence in Africa, their relationship with Russia, and their deep military ties, and they are also expanding their influence in the Caribbean and South America area. It seems like the more unstable the area is, the more interest they'll get from China. More recently in Mexico, China has assured that almost 80% of the telecommunications equipment is Chinese-made. In Africa, they are lending a hand in the renewal of the infrastructure, duty-free exports from certain countries, and helping Africa get back on their feet. It seems like the strategy is mostly to increase their reliance on China. Of course, the West assumes this is all part of a bigger scheme and everything they do is suspicious. China is fighting back on their own terms, and they'll sit and wait just as long as needed in order to take over the world and become the global superpower. In conclusion, while the US is focusing on their technology and military enforcements, China seems to be worried about becoming a relying partner for the rest of the world, which will favor them in the long run. Is this a good strategy, you think? China also knows that any advancements from their side will be quickly seen as aggression by the US, further fueling the tensions. So, what do you think? Let us know in the comments, and please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon to never miss a new video.